Okay, cool. We are live. So, after some technical issues, we can basically begin. Anyway, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I know you didn't have to, but I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that everyone will kind of get some use out of this. So, thank you very much.
Right on.
Cool. So, the first kind of area I want to explore is just a brief background into you. Obviously, I've kind of made the questions to be kind of as anonymous as possible. You've seen the questions ahead of time. If, again, there's something you don't want to answer or you feel it might give away too much, just feel free to skip it, or you can ask me afterwards and I'll be happy to get rid of the question. So, the first thing I want to ask is basically, what is your background in computer science? Did you go to university or are you self taught?
Yep. So I have a bachelor's of computer science, and really nothing about my bachelor's is impressive at all, nor my GPA. I was kind of clueless completely going to college and like didn't do Leetcode or anything in college. So didn't start any of that until afterwards.
Would you say that the school you went to slash your GPA may have like hindered you in terms of getting like callbacks from recruiters, or it didn't really matter in the end?
I don't think it mattered like I was able to get a job out of college. But like I was just so happy to like make $60,000 coming out of college that I had no idea how much money people were making. So ignorance is bliss in a way.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess following up on that, in the past, how would you kind of describe the companies that you worked for in terms of, were they startups? Were they mid-size? Was it other FAANG? Of course, you don't have to go into details on the names just because you don't want to dox yourself, but, just give us
Yeah.
a sense of kind of the size of the place.
Yeah. So I've gotten a jack of all trades at this point. My first job was a very small startup with just a handful of engineers. And then from there, I like got sucked into the banking world, the Java world. So mid-sized bank, and then eventually switched to a large bank. And yeah, now obviously going to work for Meta shortly.
Lovely. And I guess you don't have to put an exact number on it, but in term, maybe you could do like a bucket range of like roughly how many years of experience did you have when you were applying for Meta?
Yeah. So between my three jobs, I had roughly 2 years of experience in each of them. So coming into Meta with roughly 6 years of experience.
Oh wow, okay, that's quite a lot. So would you say that in terms of your work, you were mostly on the product side, or kind of the infra side, or maybe somewhere kind of in between, like a full stack role?
Yeah. So I've definitely been full stack, even mobile at some point earlier in my jobs, but slowly more and more became more specialized in back end infrastructure roles to the point where like I can code front end, but like don't make me do it because it's not going to be good.
Fair enough. And then in terms of like tech stack, because I think a lot of people are always interested, like, oh, do I know the right languages to work there? What would you say is like your main tech stack? And do you think that also kind of helped with getting the call back from the recruiter of like, oh, this guy's got experience in this kind of language or framework? Okay, let's give him a call back.
Yeah. So working at a bank, you're either doing Java or C Sharp for the most part. To some extent, Python more recently, which has been helpful for lead code interviews. And then like I fiddle with some stuff on the side, but really it's just good old Java and C Sharp.
Fair enough. Cool. So I think that's kind of a good amount on kind of your background, and I think the more interesting stuff will be definitely around the actual kind of preparation and how the interviews went and all of that afterwards. So I want to kind of transition to the second part, which is kind of discussing the interview prep, and I think you kind of touched on this before, but I guess I'll just ask it again, and you can elaborate more if you'd like to. But I guess, have you done any sort of like leak code style questions, or gone through the grind before you actually applied and ultimately got an offer at Meta?
Yeah. So the first job, yeah, as I mentioned, I didn't know what LeetCode was until afterwards. Worked there for 2 years and realized how much money I could be making if I just did LeetCode for a little bit. So I guess including this current grind, I've done three total LeetCode grinds, each one being more intense than the last. So the first one, like I did get interviews at big tech after having 2 years of experience. and I did like a total of like 50 leak code problems, and I probably got laughed at after the fact. The second time, I kind of knew what I was in for, so I did like roughly 300 total solved. I did grind 75,
Hmm.
um, and I still did not do a very good job in the interview there.
Mm.
I think the main difference between the last time I did it and this time was really, I mean, obviously how much time I put into it,
Hmm.
but not just focusing on like total count, but
Hmm.
really like I need to memorize these top algorithms. You know, if someone says BFS, I can code it in 20 seconds, you know, and then
Hmm.
I need to think about the edge case. You know, I could go more into detail, I guess, afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I guess some of the follow-ups will kind of touch on more of the details. In terms of the preparation, I guess for this last round of kind of approach for Meta, how long did you take to kind of go through from, I want to apply to actually kind of taking the interview day?
yeah. So fortunately, I guess once you fail an interview at AWS or Meta or wherever else, you're gonna get called probably on a yearly basis to try again. So th this time around, like I got my yearly call to try again. And so yeah, from getting that call and then having a phone screen scheduled, it just because it was like during the holidays and stuff, it was about 2 months until I did the phone screen.
Mm,
And I spent roughly 4 to 5 hours a day,
wow.
every single day, doing leet code. Um, Not a fun time, but
Yeah.
definitely like this time around for me, like really what I was thinking about was like, this is the last time I'm going to do this, and I'm going
Mhm.
to try as hard as I possibly can, and leave nothing on the table. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I can definitely relate to that. That was kind of my approach as well. It's like, okay, this is where I want to work. This is what I want to do. I'm just going to put everything into it. And luckily at the time, I was quite, I didn't really have much to do at work, so I could just kind of leak code all day and on the weekends as well. And yeah, it just gets like a really sweaty grind, and you're just coming up with solutions to problems in the shower. And it's like, oh my God, oh, that's how you
yeah,
solve this one. And it's just, yeah, you're in that mode, and then it's so nice to be out of it. But yeah, I can only imagine if you then fail, it's like, oh, I just wasted 3 months of my life,
yep.
you know, these stupid algorithms. Okay, and I guess what was your overall preparation approach? I think you mentioned, you solved like 300 questions. You did the grind 75 list. Was there any kind of other structure to your preparation outside of, okay, this is the meta list. I know that I'm responsible for top 100, top 125, whatever. I'm just going to grind through them, memorize them? Or was there kind of a more methodical approach to how you approached each question? If you couldn't solve it, this is what you would do. If you could, you'd revisit it after X days, anything like that. Like, what was your kind of overall approach?
Yep. So like I touched on it a little bit of like not focusing on total solve count. Like I already had a good amount.
Hmm.
Um, but even like the last time I interviewed, right? Like I had recognized the question and knew that I had practiced it before,
Mm.
but only saw it one time.
Hmm.
And if you've done the meta questions before, you know, like some of them, if you don't have them memorized, like you're just not going to come up with the
Yeah.
solution. So really like for each problem in the list, this time around was really, memorizing is like I don't know, a touchy word when it comes to practicing leak code, but my goal really was to memorize before the phone screen the top 75 3 months tagged.
Hmm.
Um, and really for each problem in this list was to like not waste time solving it myself
Hmm.
because like if you've done leak code enough, like if you don't at least recognize what you're supposed to do,
Hmm.
you're not going to come up with the optimal solution and you're really just wasting your time.
Yeah.
So I would find, a cracking FAANG video, self
Please
plug there,
subscribe. Boost the ad
um,
revenue.
or neat code or whatever.
No,
Yeah.
just kidding. I have to blur that out. It's okay. It's okay.
Or some video, but really focusing on like the walkthrough and understanding the intuition. If the walkthrough makes sense, like as soon as it starts to make sense, pause it, try to code it. Don't waste time trying to figure it out. Go back and watch the code explanation. So all in all, even if you're watching the full video, like I would really never spend more than 20 to 30 minutes on a problem, depending on how difficult the problem was. And so, yeah, marking each problem that I did in a spreadsheet of like, okay, I practiced 3 to 5 problems today. and either I did good on them or I didn't. I would kind of like mark that down, and then the next day before I would start my next set of 3 to 5 problems, I would repeat the ones previously. Certain problems, depending on how confusing they were, I would code out the solution the first time doing it. If I didn't understand it, delete all of the code, immediately do it again. And like every time you repeat the problem, the the part that's confusing, and I think like the part that becomes important to learn in the context of solving the problem. If it's a BFS problem, like the one or two lines, the if condition that needs to change to solve this particular problem using BFS, that's probably the part that, at least for me, that I wouldn't remember. Every time I repeat that, it becomes more and more ingrained of how BFS can be used to solve problems in this particular case. And so eventually, like, honest to God, like I wish, I kind of wish I studied Leetcode like this earlier, because like as much as you want to talk about memorization versus learning or whatever, like I definitely within a very short amount of time, I would say like 2 weeks of grinding like this, like got good at Leetcode. Like I was at the point where I could do the entire top 75 list in like 4 hours, um, which is like pretty sweaty. I can type very fast, but it is like, you know, I don't know. It was that was really it. I mean, it's really just repeating the problems over and over again until like um until nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel Meta is definitely that one company where this actually works. Maybe for other ones, like yes, you still solve the lead code questions, but you could get something fresh. Whereas there, it's like rinse and repeat the same questions over and over again. So this strategy
Yeah.
works, and yeah, I just if you're trying to go for Google, you actually have to know the underlying things, and it's like okay,
Yeah.
this is just so much easier. But
I,
anyway,
I
I
would.
guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I would say like, with at least because Meta wasn't the only place I was interviewing for
Mm,
at the time. Like, despite my prep being so specific to the Meta tagged problems and the
mm-hmm,
memorization of these tagged problems, like when I did my AWS interview
mm-hmm,
for the leak code problems that I was asked, like that was the easiest coding interview, at least in a FAANG context, that I have ever
mm-hmm.
experienced,
Oh wow.
even though I didn't really study specifically for AWS. And
Mm,
maybe that was just luck, but I do feel like some of these problems like really carry over,
yeah.
some of them.
Fair enough. And then I guess in terms of the preparation, did you do any mocks and did you find them at all useful?
So I didn't do any like paid mocks. I
Hmm.
did have a friend who like works basically at a FAANG,
Hmm.
you could say. And he does interviews at FAANG, so
Hmm.
basically did mocks, fortunate to have a friend like that.
Yeah.
Mainly focused on like system design mocks.
Hmm.
At least because I already did Facebook coding interviews before, so I
Mm.
understood like ask questions first, do the time and space complexity, run through a test case. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. You kind of have to like fail an interview one time for getting those things,
Yeah.
at least for me, before you like really realize the, I don't know, the song and dance you have to do.
Hmm.
And then the other thing, like really working with other people. So like, you have a Discord where people are all studying and everything. Like asking people in that Discord for help. You can like talk about problems, and even in some cases, like the the solution that's on LeetCode or that you'll find on a YouTube video isn't necessarily like the most optimal solution for a
Guilty.
particular language. Um, but like talking with other people, like you can get help from them, but also once you get good to the point and like other people are asking questions, like
Hmm.
if you can explain to someone how to understand next permutation, like you are never going to forget that problem if you
Yeah.
are able to competently explain that to somebody else. So things like that, like I think that was a really big difference maker for me of like spending that time working with other people on studying these problems, um, and then also like what would you call it? Oh no, I'm blanking.
It's all right. Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I made a video on next permutation. I still don't know how to solve it, but it's just one of those. It's like it makes sense, like it works in my head, but like explaining the math behind it. People in the comments are like, "Can you prove this mathematically?" I'm like, "Bro, you're on the wrong channel here. Like, we don't do that shit here." Like,
You just reverse it and don't think about it.
it's like, no, I don't do proofs. Like, just trust me, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I guess two more questions. Do you have any regrets regarding the way you prepped, or wished you did things differently? I guess you passed, so ultimately you probably don't have regrets. But I don't know. Did you spend too much time, or over-index on certain things, or would you say that your approach, you're happy with it?
Yep. I would say like in terms of my prep, if you look at like the meta tag problems and you have an idea of what the variants are, then you can find those on like Leetcode discuss and whatnot. There's certain problems that are tagged that you're just never going to be asked in an interview.
Yeah.
It's usually I don't know because like I don't know what it's like on the other end of interviewing, but from my perspective after doing this a handful of times now, if you're getting like a Leetcode hard with a ton of edge cases, like the worst case scenario is you might see a variant of that problem that has less edge cases. And then there's other instances where like there's like a reservoir sampling problem that like isn't even the solution isn't accepted on Leetcode. There's a couple reservoir sampling problem that you're not going to find a tag variant of, and then there's the also opposite situation where there's like Minesweeper is a problem, which I believe what Facebook asked, at least on Leetcode discussed, is a reservoir sampling problem. But if you look at it on Leetcode, it's like basically designing a game, like, and it's like 80 lines of like you're never going to get asked that problem in an interview. So there's a lot of problems like that. Where it's like, if it seems too long to code, even when you know the solution, you're probably not going to get asked that one in an interview.
Yeah.
And yeah, like off of that, like understanding the variants, I don't know how often you get asked a variant, but at least for me, I was never asked like a direct Leetcode problem. It was always a variant of a given problem. So at least it's going to be hard to practice every single variant, but at least understanding what the variants are also gives you a good idea of what questions to ask in terms of like clarifying questions when you're asked it, which is good. And then also just thinking of edge cases to test is good as well. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the last thing I want to kind of wrap up this section with, and maybe it's just like a quick fire answer of like, what would be your top 3 tips for someone preparing for kind of the meta interview in terms of their preparation? What kind of 3 things should they do? It doesn't have to be super elaborate because I know you've just kind of given a huge kind of description of what you did, but
yeah, I like for specifically meta, like focus solely on tagged and variants of tagged problems. Going beyond that is kind of pointless. I think getting a study buddy like of some form is very helpful. Even if you're both just learning, just like having someone who is like suffering with you, it makes it easier to sit through and code Leetcode for 4 hours a day. And then like I think the other thing, like again, especially being on the other end of this, I guess now, like not passing is a potential outcome that you have to accept no matter how much you work at it. You could always get someone on a bad day or just ask you a ridiculous question and you're just going to fail. And it is what it is. Like you kind of have to like look at this as like a longer lens of like, even if you don't pass this time around or at the company you want, if you're able to get multiple interviews, great. But like try to carry your prep forward to the next time around that you're going to interview. Like don't let it all rot away. Like you don't have to do 4 hours a day for a year straight, but definitely like it isn't as stressful if you if you don't leave it to the last minute.
Yeah, it's definitely a muscle, and if you let it atrophy, then it's going to be harder to come back. But if you kind of keep it. But I guess, I mean, yeah, if you fail, the motivation to keep going, it's like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
BFS, like, I don't care. Like, I'm just gonna go outside, see the sun. Well, anyway, yeah, that's definitely really good advice. I think we can maybe move to kind of like the interview itself. And my first one is just in general, how did you find the kind of interview loop? We can just keep it to the onsite because I think the phone screen is pretty straightforward.
Okay. This time around, they did have the option for a 2-day interview. Last time I interviewed, that wasn't an option, I don't think. Everything was like all at once. So I definitely found the 2-day interview like more helpful, but also at the same time, like knowing in the back of my head, like, okay, I did great on these first 2 interviews. Now the next day, you know, it came down to like my last interview was a coding round, and I was like, okay, I got the first problem good.
Yeah.
He's gonna face the second problem, and either I know I'm gonna get the job or not when this problem hits the screen. Um, yeah, and it was very stressful because like I mentioned before, like this was me probably last time committing to a Leetcode grind like this, and like it. I thought it would feel better every time I did good on an interview, but it always just kept getting more and more stressful of like, okay, now it all comes down to this last Leetcode problem.
Yeah.
But ultimately got a good result.
Nice. In terms of the questions that you got, would you say that they were about the difficulty that you were expecting, or you got some kind of curveballs where it was much harder?
I did mention earlier about like the variance. I didn't really understand that you got variance until I did my phone screen and I got a variant and fortunately solved it. I didn't recognize what it was a variant of, and I solved the problem 3 different ways, from n squared to linear with space to finally constant space linear. Got lucky there. And so definitely like practiced a lot more variants and looked up variants and everything. But I think like other than understanding that there's variants, I think the questions were actually easier than what's on Leetcode, because they're usually, if it's a long problem with a lot of convoluted edge cases, like you don't have that much time to go in through that. So I would imagine, this is my experience with the problems I got, at least, they were simpler versions of either hard problems and kind of turned them into mediums, or just straight up medium problems.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that's usually kind of the expectation. It's about 2 mediums per question. Okay, so I guess we already touched on variants, but did you get any kind of new questions or unseen ones that weren't on the list? I know sometimes maybe you can get a surprise question that's not on there. Maybe Meta's cracking down and say, hey, you better not post any new questions. Anything that's up there you can keep, but the new ones, don't let them get posted. Anything like that?
Nope. Everything I got, like at least in hindsight, I could be like, oh, that was a variant of this problem.
Nice. I guess, how did the kind of system design and behavioral rounds go? Were those all right?
Yep. So the behavioral for me was pretty easy. Like, I think the easiest way to put it is I prepared for an AWS interview, and if you've ever done that, you have to prepare like 16 behavioral stories or something insane. You need like 2 to 3 stories per interview you do. And so going into a Meta behavioral interview, you really only need like 5 or so. And also on top of that, like I have like behavioral stories that I'm very passionate about talking, which I think was also helpful for me. So was not worried about that at all. And then the system design round for me, a friend told me to buy Hello Interview, and that was probably the best $30 I think I've ever spent in my life. It has like good learnings in it, even outside of the context of system design. And for me, I like studied every single problem on there, and ultimately like the system design question I was asked was not like directly one of those problems, but if you do all of the problems that are on Hello Interview, pretty much the amalgamation of the concepts that you read about in there can be used to apply almost every problem. And so that's exactly what happened. Basically got something similar to design YouTube and went into one deep dive relating to that, and felt like it was a positive. I passed, so I think it was good.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess, do you have experience with kind of designing large scale systems that you could draw off of, or was most of your kind of knowledge for that interview kind of theoretical and based on, reading Hello Interview, designing data intensive applications, whatever other resources are out there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely things like design YouTube. Like I'm not experienced personally with storing fractions of video in S3 and how to, save timestamps and whatever. Like so, but like the common stuff, yeah, I definitely like have a very good understanding of, the AWS. What would you call them? Not helping my case here. Just like the simple AWS structures that you would
Yeah,
use
yeah.
for almost every application, like talking about those and the edge cases of those and the write capacity of DynamoDB and all that stuff. Like I don't have to think or study about any of it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so let's get into kind of the more interesting part outside of the interview. How long did you need to wait for a response from the recruiter after you kind of completed the final interview?
So after the last interview, it took about an entire week. It was like 5 days, business days, I guess, to get a result from the interview. And I ended up having a coding follow-up round. And then after I did the coding follow-up round, I scheduled that fairly quickly. So that was like a week after I figured out I passed. I think I had a coding follow-up round, and then I received news that I passed like the next day.
Nice. I guess, how did it feel when you finally got that email or call saying, hey, you made it through and we're going to extend the offer?
It still doesn't feel real. It didn't feel real in the moment, and it still doesn't feel real now. Yeah. I technically got lowballed, but from my background, I do not give a shit at all.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think that was my next question was, did they try to lowball you? So I guess quite bad. Or
Yeah. I mean, it's not like again, it's like all a matter of perspective. For me, it was like 20K under median of what you'd see on levels.
okay, that's not too
Which
bad.
it's when you're talking about the money you're getting paid, like it's really not a big deal. And it seems to be like, at least from other people I've seen getting offers, like they're kind of lowballing everybody. I
Yeah.
have like seen people easily get counter offered without even having to provide proof. But for me, I'm like, I'm not risking anything. Like I'm not going to risk this job over $20,000. Like
Yeah.
it's not worth it for me. So yeah, happy with it ultimately. And it really was at my expectations when I was applying because like there's so few companies hiring right now. You kind of knew what was going to happen.
Fair enough. Did you try to negotiate at all, or they just
No,
struck down?
and like I did with my current job, but my current job pays like half of what this role
Yeah.
would pay. So they kind of just laughed at me and were like, congratulations.
Yeah.
So there's really not much leverage I have anyways.
So I guess you said you were also interviewing for AWS. Did they offer you something that you could have used to negotiate, or it was just you'd had the Meta offer and that was it?
No, I just had the Meta offer and that was it. I got like recycled at AWS and ultimately like I know enough people there that I don't really want to work there. I'm sure there's teams that are great, but at least my personal circle, it's not. So
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, sometimes if it's even that's going to be a huge jump in TC, it's okay, whatever. Like, it is what it is. I'm not going to risk losing it. So sometimes you just take it. So I guess ultimately, you'd probably say that you're probably quite happy with the final offer. You're able to agree.
yep.
Nice. Well, yeah, congratulations. It's always good to get the offer. I guess the last set of questions are kind of regarding the team matching process. I know that's something that's kind of relatively new in the past, especially when I joined. We had the whole boot camp process, which was quite nice because you didn't really have to wait for that team matching to happen before you can actually sign your offer. You formally joined and then you picked it later, and you can screen kind of managers, and it's a lot easier to kind of tell who's a bit of a nutcase or like which team is not going to be good. Or you can look at, we have a tool, it's called, basically it shows you like a heat map of when people submit code. So if you're kind of looking at a team and then you see, oh man, 10 p.m. and then weekends, like, see ya, I'm not joining you. Like 1 a.m., see ya, no way. So yeah, it's always easier. But then when you're on the inside, they're always going to sell you some like, oh yeah, we have great work-life balance, and it's so chill. And then you get there, and it's like, oh, by the way, we work 80-hour weeks, and yeah, you're gonna get pipped if you don't do that. It's like no.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the first one is how did you find the overall team match process?
Um, I I found it very stressful. I don't know if most people find it that way, but for me, it took a long time to even get a single match possibility. Like
Hmm.
it took roughly a month. And it just like there was no feeling of certainty,
Hmm.
and definitely being in a limbo of like, okay, like I passed this interview, but I can't put in my 2 weeks yet.
Hmm.
And then like by the time I actually did interview with a hiring manager,
Hmm.
it still felt like an interview in a way of
Hmm.
like making sure that I can pass for this role. And
Yeah.
like I know people have talked about it like, oh, you're interviewing the team.
Hmm.
Uh, at least from my perspective, like it was still interviewing, I guess, the team and what it's about. But it didn't really feel like I had much of a choice.
Hmm.
Fortunately, the team that I had a match offer with, the first one that matched with me, like it sounds like a really cool project, and I'm very
Hmm.
excited to work on it. And for me, like really like the questions that I was asking, like at least I don't really care much about work-life balance right now,
Hmm.
as weird as that is to say. I really just cared about working on something that people are actually using.
Hmm.
Uh, just asking about like what specifically would be my role
Hmm.
in what they're doing at the team, and then overall just like understanding what type of growth opportunities are within the role and at Meta in
Hmm.
general. And then you really only have like 30 minutes to ask questions. Like I'm sure you could like book another follow-up interview.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like I've been waiting for 4 weeks, right? And I just wanted to like have some certainty about this role. So it's like, I ended up accepting it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Hmm. I guess what sort of things did you ask the hiring manager in order to determine whether it would be a fit for you? Or at that point, was it like, okay, I have no matches, like I'm just gonna take whatever as long as they take me?
Yeah. Like just in terms of like the situation I'm at, um, I don't know. Like I really just cared about like actually doing something. Like the previous bank jobs that I've had, um, like technically the things I built were like to handle infinite scale.
Hmm.
Uh, and then if you actually tracked how much things are actually used for what I've built so far in my career,
Hmm.
um, basically not use at all, which like as an engineer who cares about engineering, like it
Hmm.
is kind of like it does feel crappy if people aren't using what you're building. And
Hmm.
so that's really what I was asking about of like what's the scale you guys are handling? And obviously like meta scale for the products that you're building.
Hmm.
Uh, it's like even when you say the numbers, like because obviously you know, whatever the percentage of people in the world using some form of a meta product. And
Hmm.
if you're working on anything that touches, a broader scope of those products, like the scale is hard to imagine. And yeah, asking just about that, how how the product, is used beyond like what the consumer sees, but like the infrastructure behind it. And it's like, again, it's like a 30-minute hiring manager interview, so you could only ask so much. And like, I'm sure the specific role is way more narrow
Hmm.
than actually what the responses were.
Nice. I guess ultimately, were you happy with the available teams that were on offer slash the one that you will join, or was it bittersweet having to accept the one that was kind of ultimately offered to you?
I think the first one I match with, and maybe this is a good thing because I know they like review your resume and stuff beforehand.
Hmm.
The first team that I matched with, like I did feel like was a very good fit given my current experience and everything. So I'm really happy about it. Uh, I kept telling myself while I was doing it too of like they're hiring, whatever the number is, 3,200 people that they talked about at the beginning of the year. Like there's no way to do that quickly. Like this is just going to take time.
Hmm.
So hopefully for other people it doesn't take as long. But yeah, I guess you just got to sit tight, and the recruiter wants to get you matched, um, and eventually I guess you get matched. I don't know.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, I think that was kind of my last question. I guess I just want to leave it as with, do you have any kind of final words of advice for kind of viewers who are also in the same position? They're looking to pass their Meta interview. Anything they should kind of know in like a, 1 to 2 sentence kind of summary of the whole process, what to look out for?
Yep. I mean, I think to be succinct, I would say study as hard as you possibly can. Uh, and if you fail, I think use that failure as motivation to become an engineer, a better engineer, until you can ultimately try again. I think I'm happy with the path it took me to get here.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's easier to say, I guess, once you make it, but it definitely, I don't know, I wouldn't really change much.
Perfect. Yeah, what a great way to leave it. I think that's really sound advice. And yeah, thank you so much for kind of agreeing to do this interview. I hope that people will kind of find these answers insightful, helpful, and it can kind of guide them on their process, any kind of doubts they might be having along the way. I know a lot of people are in the same boat, and it always is good to hear that, other people are having the same thoughts as you, and other people are also going through the same experience as you are. So hopefully other people will get value out of this, and hopefully the audio actually recorded. Otherwise, all this knowledge will go out the window, and it's just me talking. But yeah, anyway, again, thank you so much for kind of agreeing to do this. I really appreciate it. And, best of luck. Maybe our paths will cross one day, or maybe I'll message you on my last day and say, hey, I'm glad I was able to help you get the job, and best of luck out there. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too.
No problem. All right. Cheers. Thank you.